Hello, I'm LisaKay.
And I'm Taylor Cole Longacre.
And this is
Intentional Talk,
a show that cares and brings positives to the air.
Well, welcome everyone to our show. Today we are talking with Vince Poscente. He has spent his life researching, writing, and speaking about life mastery. He's a New York Times bestselling author who wrote the international phenomenon, The Ant and the Elephant, Leadership for the Self. And his background is an Olympian, guys. It's going to be really good to hear from him about that. And he really helps us to accelerate from past setbacks and really move towards sustained results. Welcome to Intentional Talk with LisaKay and Taylor, Vince Poscente.
Taylor, thank you.
Yes.
LisaKay, good to see you again.
Yes, welcome. Glad you're here.
This is going to be a good time.
Yes.
I love Canada. Many of you know I do a lot of traveling, and I've been to Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta. It was
Really? Wow.
negative 14, negative 114.
Probably negative 2,000 if it was winter. Yeah.
Well, tell us a bit about your background, because I've already said you're an Olympian, you're Canadian.
Well, I'm now living in Texas, so
Okay.
I did meet a Texas gal, and that's how I ended up here, but didn't know that was an option. I went, oh, geez. So now I live here. 3
That's
kids.
good marketing for us.
Yes. Oh, yes. Texas gals,
Texas gals.
irresistible. So, no, I've been here for 25 years, but prior to that, growing up in Canada in Edmonton, I was a clarinet player, but I was fascinated by the Olympic Games and to see them on TV. And then I got a sports marketing degree, University of Alberta.
Wow.
I was about recreation administration and fascinated by the Olympic movement to the degree that I was involved with the Olympics in Calgary. Remember the Eddie the Eagle and the Jamaican bobsled team?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was such a cool time.
So, yeah, isn't it interesting that the two entities that placed dead last are the most famous in the Olympic Games? But to be involved in those Olympic Games and having had raced in luge, do you know what luge is? Luge is kind of like bobsled, but you lay on your back,
Okay.
screaming the whole way
Yeah,
down.
it's really fast and
Yeah.
fun. You're like,
Yeah.
"Ah!"
So
I'd probably be giggling.
Well, you might be giggling, but you'll go no giggling in luge, come to think of it.
I just think skin your elbows. I think hold tight, don't
That
touch
is-
anything.
There is a learning curve, and it is painful. But anyway, I luged for a couple of years, luged in Lake Placid just as on a lark, really. But this idea of the Olympic Games, that fascination never went away. And then with luge, I thought, wait, I might have a shot at this. And pulled the national team coach aside with my buddy Bob Gasper, who had the same kind of dream. Wouldn't it be cool to be in the Olympic Games? And she basically straightened us out and said, boys, I already have guys on the national team. We have Olympic qualifying standards, which is top 16 in the world. Yeah. If you're 17th place or lower, you don't go representing at least Canada, and I think the United States for that matter. There are Olympic qualifying standards. So you have to be ranked high in the world. She's the highest ranking Canadian I have here is 33rd in the world. And if we had the Olympics tomorrow, we would send no one. We have the Olympics in 5 years from now, and you guys just started luging, 2 weeks ago, right?
Really?
So I got the message from the national team coach and went, all right, I guess that's not going to happen. I went home and quit the sport of luge. I mean, I just went on with my life. And Bob Gasper heard the exact same message. He went home, quit his job, bought a luge sled, and went to Europe to luge on his own dime, right? Do you have neighbors? You just look them out the window thinking, cuckoo,
Oh yeah, they look at me that way too.
And so this watching Bob do that, I thought, you are off your rocker. I mean, but if you fast forward to the opening ceremonies of the Olympics in Calgary, I happened to get a ticket for those opening ceremonies, which were a tough ticket to get, And the place went silent. By tradition, the host country marches in last. And when the Canadian national team marched in Calgary Olympics, those 5 years after the trying luge for the first time, the only person in focus was Bob Gasper. I mean, he was marching with the Olympic team, and I was in the stands with a ticket. And so I guess what brings us to this place here today are defining moments. And that was a moment of emotional intensity, a defining moment, a moment where you realize, wait, this isn't working, right? This is not working and walking away from some opportunity, like to continue on with luge. I'm not saying I know I would have made the luge team. I am saying I don't know. You know, there's this saying, I actually first heard it from a 14-year-old girl. She said, fear is temporary, regrets last forever.
Wow.
And never again, ever again will I have that level of regret, or regret, period. I mean, just no more regrets. That was the motivation. So that started the whole Olympic thing at 26 years old. I'd never ski raced before. And then 4 years later, I was competing for Canada in the Olympics in Albertville, France. And it all came together and has since turned into a formula that crosses over into the personal and professional world.
And training and speaking and
yeah,
coaching.
there's stuff I learned as an Olympian, but not just as an athlete, but how to accelerate an outcome, not just how to reach a goal. There's a lot of us that know how to do that, but how can we cut that length of time in half? And that's what this Olympic story did.
Yeah.
you live by the timer.
You know, they give you a deadline.
Wow.
They said the opening ceremonies are here, qualifying date is here, and knock yourself out. See if you can make the team. You know, and there's a lot of athletes out there who you're competing against. So how are you going to step in and engage to the level that will put you in this case, the top 16 in the world in under 4 years from a standing start? That's
Wow.
looking back, I think, who do you think you are, right? Like, how would you actually? But it was motivated by not wanting the sting of regret ever again,
Yeah.
right? That's the motivation. So.
I see from this endurance, faith. Oh my gosh, just incredible story. Yeah.
Faith had everything to do with it, because you're if you think you're alone on this journey, it's going to be a tough road to hoe, you know. So is that the way to say it? Road to hoe? Hoe to road?
Toe.
Toe to road?
Road to toe was what I thought.
Let's
But
just make up
anyway,
words.
tell us in the comments, for those of who are on Facebook Live with us or LinkedIn Live, tell us in the comment, is it the road to
Hoe?
the road to
Or the
toe?
the road to toe?
Road to
Toe
toe.
road. I really think it's toe, but
Just spend
I've
the
been
next
wrong
half
too
hour
many
talking
times.
You know, Vince, intentional talk is more of self-awareness and the power of intention. What would be your take on that?
I would say that there is an intention is directly associated with the word alignment. And if you have intentional talk, if you have an intention of sorts, then is that aligned with why you're on this planet? Is this aligned with who you are as a person? And so if you're misaligned, then the intention is out of whack, right? And you may have good intentions, but if they're not aligned with what makes you tick, those good intentions are going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
And so,
Amen.
I mean, if we can take the struggle out of life, wouldn't it be easier? I know that sounds obvious, but it's such a simple task to be in intention, right? To be aligned with not only who you are. So, for example, this Olympic thing, what would make a rational person want to do this? I love challenge. I love adventure. I love variety. I love to be able to take something on and make fear smaller, not bigger.
Yeah.
And it checked all those boxes.
Yeah.
So when you can check all those boxes and your intention is to honor that with how you're wired and who you are and the superpowers you can bring to this world, I mean, then every day is a joy. You just bounce out of bed and say, "This, I get to do this again." You know,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the ant and the elephant. And it starts with clarity of vision.
Right. So let's back up. So the book was called The Ant and the Elephant, based on a speech I'd heard by a Dr. Lee Poulos. And he found that in a second of time, the conscious mind utilizes 2,000 neurons. In 1 second, the conscious mind. So your conscious mind is processing what I have to say. If you're seeing this on video, you're thinking, man, that guy looks like the old man from Up. I don't know whatever you think, white hair, big glasses. But whatever you're thinking consciously, 2,000 neurons every second. In the same second, the subconscious mind is processing with 4 billion neurons, 4 billion with a B. So the ratio of activity of the conscious and subconscious mind is the exact same ratio between an ant and an elephant.
Oh. Wow.
So that is why, and I'd been speaking for a bit, and I was giving presentations at events, and I was really talking about actually the alignment, the intention stuff that is so critical to that first step, that clarity that you just brought up. You cannot have clarity without having an alignment of your ant and elephant. Your conscious intention aligned with a subconscious agenda that it syncs up with your intention. Because, for example, in the parable, the ant and the elephant, the ant wants to go west, right? Mm-hmm. The ant doesn't know this at the beginning of the book, that he's on the back of an elephant, right? So the ant goes, I know that the oasis is west, so I'm going to start marching west, says the ant, and is on the back of the elephant marching west, and then ends up east and going, how is this possible? I was marching west. And then this teacher, this mentor, an owl in the parable named Brio shows up and says, you're on the back of an elephant. Your conscious mind is on the back of a subconscious mind. And until your elephant is headed in the same direction, this is going to be a struggle your whole life.
We all go through that.
Yes.
Yin and yang, all these different things that we're competing against.
And think about it. It applies not just to going west, it applies to relationships. You can say, hey, I want to be in this kind of relationship and end up in a different place. Mm-hmm. I intend to have this kind of financial well-being and end up in a different place of debt or whatever. I intend to have this kind of health but end up with, a trip to the doctor saying, we're going to have to do a triple bypass. You kind of go, wait a minute. I had this intention and I ended up in a different place. A lot of that has to do with having your ant and elephant headed in the same direction. And it is essential to start with clarity of vision. The clear vision. Now, it's a clear vision when it has what I call the emotional buzz. Or in the book, the elephant buzz, which means a thought creates a physical reaction. The thought in this case of marching in the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games had a physical reaction of that would be the coolest thing. For whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know why we have this resonance of you internally. But it is a litmus test for your ant and elephant headed in the same direction. If something has an emotional buzz, and an emotional buzz isn't just positive. It isn't just, oh, wouldn't that be awesome to have a cottage by the lake, or to have a family reunion that I pay for everybody to fly in and I host this thing, or to be able to have some special thing for your grandkids or whatever that emotional buzz is for you. It's not just the Hollywood version of what do you want to create or what do you want to build or what do you want to have. It's also infused with anxiety.
It's very sensory. The minute you describe this, I'm thinking if it's the opening ceremonies for the Olympics, I can hear the sounds. I can feel if it's cold. I can feel that I'm in Calgary and the Christmas in the air and all of my senses. I can
all
smell
5
things
senses.
there.
Well, that's how you bring it to life. That emotional buzz comes to life when you have the 5 senses. And if you want to add rocket fuel to that, add the emotion attached to that, like satisfaction and fulfillment and stuff like that. Yeah. But I will add that when you start with clarity and what you want, what you aspire towards, pay attention to the thing that causes anxiety, because there's a part of our gut that has us go, wait a minute, this might not work, or there's risk involved, or wait a minute, what if I look stupid, or what if I don't have enough money, or what if that anxiety you can use to your advantage. Stephen Pressfield wrote a book called The War of Art, and he basically, I'll save you $20. In the book, he talks about if it scares you, it's important to you.
Okay.
Now let that sink in for a second.
Most people don't gravitate to that.
You don't gravitate to that which scares you because, wait, that's uncomfortable. And discomfort is where the lesson is. Discomfort is where the opportunity to supersede that and go, wait, this is important to me. So imagine combining the emotional buzz of what you aspire towards, that thing, that tingle up and down your spine, that visceral feeling, and the anxiety of something that is important to you. Now, here's a word, realistic. I hate the word realistic. Why does it have to be realistic? I even say your goals need to be realistic, attainable, time specific, and all that. Like, wait. Let's just start with realistic. I don't know what realistic is, but I know that if it has an emotional buzz, whether it's realistic or not, it's worth paying attention to. So,
okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's clarity.
Oh, that's clarity. LisaKay, what's another C?
Commitment.
Commitment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why do you think most of the general public have a struggle with commitment?
Yeah, there's a few reasons, but number one is thinking that commitment is episodic, meaning every Saturday, right? Couples walk down the aisle, say, I do, and well, I committed that Saturday so many years ago. Oh, Sparky, this is a process of commitment, not a moment, not an episode that you just said I'm in.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're a butterfly. It doesn't just change immediately.
No, and that's another piece. Is commitment is you can commit to something, and then once you get into it, then you start to realize that there's another level of a commitment, another level of engagement, another level of throwing yourself into this that's going to be necessary for you to truly succeed at this.
So
and
true.
Yeah, people can say I do, or they can say I'm in, or sign a contract, and then they can get into it and go, yeah, I don't know if I signed up for that level of commitment.
Right. Or like signing up for the Olympics, and you actually make the team, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, now I've got to get down that mountain, or now I've got to throw that thing, and
Yeah, no, it's not to be avoided.
Yeah.
I mean, I say you seek the discomfort, which is counterintuitive. Why would I want to seek discomfort? Oh my goodness. When you get on the other side of discomfort, you've learned more, you've grown, and you've stepped into a whole new level of expanding your comfort zone.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
And wow, life is meant to be embraced, and this might be a better way to put it. Fear. Who said this? A guy that climbed Mount Everest, John Amat, said the closer you get to fear, the smaller it gets. The more you run away from fear, the larger it gets. So don't run away from what scares you, run towards it.
Okay. Yeah. Run towards it. Now, I imagine there's a level of consistency in this, right? Is that we have got to repeat this over and over again for it to stick.
Right. I think that's where we often start in this country is we say, what do we do? Let's get after it. Let's make it happen. Let's just do this. Until you pay attention to the clarity of vision, the five senses as you brought up, Taylor, the whole visceral experiential notion of this thing you're going to commit to, and understanding that your commitment is going to need to be notched up over time, then you're ready to consistently execute a strategy. Okay. And I'll give you a little tip, if you will, that worked in this Olympic journey. Now, when I stepped into the Olympics, or wanting to make the national team and all that, knowing the Olympic qualifying standards were top 16 in the world, I realized that my competition wasn't local or national to make the local teams or the national teams or even the international competition. You realize quite quickly your competition is top 16 in the world. That changes everything, because if you're stepping into a competitive landscape, or even one of an excellence mindset where you want to perform at the highest level, whether it's sales or as a parent or as an entrepreneur or as a manager, to be able to identify the competition as the highest performers, it may be impossible to catch up to them, right? It may be impossible in a competitive landscape to do better than they've been doing for the last 20 years. But you can instantly do what they're not willing to do.
Love that. And I've heard you say that before. Be willing to do what your competitors aren't willing to do.
Yeah, do what the competition is not willing to do. And That doesn't necessarily mean big things. These guys have been racing for 20 years, right? And I thought, well, what are they not willing to do? And I looked at columns like, I wrote out columns of ideas. One of the columns was research. So how could I research in a way the competition isn't willing to research? So, example, I came across a guy who had a PhD in the politics in sport, right? Well, why would you want to interview somebody? Because the competition's not willing to interview that guy, right? They're going to be training or they're going to be talking to their coach or whatever. So that half an hour interview with a gentleman who'd spent his entire life focused on a PhD in the politics and sport gave more information in that 30-minute call than you could ever do on your own. So there's a motto in the Olympics. It's Citius Altius Fortius, which is swifter, higher, stronger. Add a fourth one, which is smartius, right? How much smarter can you approach this consistency?
Oh, that's really good. Okay.
Wow.
There's another C, right?
This is strong. This is very good. I think there's two left. Is that confidence and control?
Yeah, confidence. Confidence is an interesting one too, because if you look at an athlete's performance or an artist or a musician, for example, they'll all tell you that 80%, if not more, of their excellence comes from just stepping in confidently, right? Well, confidence comes from experience. Mm-hmm. Well, what if you don't have experience with a pandemic, right? What if you don't have experience with trying to get to the Olympic Games? What if you don't have an experience with a new program? I mean, you're in production. When you stepped in, you didn't know much, or if anything. And so how do you do well without confidence? And so it really is a process. I know we're kind of short on time, but to really prepare yourself, I'll give you a little tip here. Whenever you have a negative thought, or that negative thought comes from the outside, from somebody else, ask yourself, is this taking me closer to my emotional buzz or further away? If it's taking you further away, so that's really truly a negative thought, the ant has a conversation with the elephant and says, thank you, that's not part of my vision. My vision is, and then you go back to that.
We need to go west. Or
We need to go west. It looks like this, smells like this, all the five senses. This is critical part. Not just what it is, but how it feels, the experience of it. So you've replaced the negativity with the experience of what resonates with the intention, how we started this conversation, of where you're meant to go and be and do and contribute. And
it's all emotive. It all
starts with emotion.
You're all in, whole body, fully all in. Now, what's concerning me, though, Vince, is that I think there's probably some chaos in all of this as well.
Always chaos.
Always chaos.
Yeah.
Good?
Bad? Okay, well, you're talking about two different, there's two kinds of chaos, right? The kind of chaos that's an obstacle and the kind of chaos that's paralyzing. An obstacle is simply, going to happen. Of course you're going to have an issue, and you know where west is. If you had a compass, you know where north is on the compass, and you'll figure out, you'll navigate your way.
Yeah.
So that kind of chaos we can deal with. The paralyzing chaos is the one that actually is my next book. It's called The Earthquake.
The Earthquake.
And the ant and the elephant go through a massive earthquake that their entire life is destroyed as they know it, and they have to go to a new oasis. The problem with chaos, that kind of chaos and disruption, that kind of setback, is there's no linear way out of that kind of chaos. It is very much in the book called The Earthquake, the solution loop. And that's being curious and creative along the way. I mean, there's a lot more to it. But if you are you're listening in on this, and you're experiencing that level of chaos, know that there's no prescriptive model that will take you A, B, C out of this. And again, it starts with faith. It starts with intention. But also means that you're in this process of curiosity and creativity. Does this work? Does this work? Does this work?
Well, and it's what we've experienced with the pandemic.
Yes.
The curious and creative people are surviving through this, the courageous people. Meanwhile, those who sat back in fear and said, I'm just going to watch the headlines, I'm going to let this paralyze me. I think those are the businesses, those are the entrepreneurs, those are the organizations that have not moved forward.
Yeah. I have a very good friend who owns a local establishment. He owns a restaurant and venue for concerts, right? If anybody could be devastated by this pandemic, and he's got bills, man. He's got $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a month going out, and he got creative. He got very curious. He got very creative, and they've figured it out how to survive. And sometimes that's all you can do in chaos is just survive. It's too much for us high achievers in this room to think, oh, no, let's thrive. Let's get out there. We can take it on. But you know what? Sometimes it's so debilitating that if we could just stabilize and survive and stay curious and creative in that process, eventually you'll pop out and be on the other side. For some people, it appears that they just sailed through the pandemic. How lucky for them, right?
Yeah.
And for others, it's been devastating.
Yeah. Big struggle for a lot.
Yes.
My daughter owns a business in Atlanta, and she's 36. And when it first hit and they were forced to shut down, I worried a little bit because she would get on live video, her Facebook page, and she would cry a little bit about the worries and just sharing the losses of her business. And I prayed about this. I didn't want to step in and say, please don't, Anyway, after about 2 of those, her third live video, she actually was sharing positives of how she got creative and her business was changing around. And she dived in and got more creative to where she's not losing anything. She's still making as much or a little bit more.
Well,
so I love that story you just shared.
Just not give. It's easy to say don't give up. But when you don't know where up is, it can be truly debilitating, and that's just the human condition. Just know you're not alone. That's probably most important.
You are a wealth of information, Vince.
Yes.
How can our viewers and listeners get more information about you?
If you know how to spell my last name, you can find me. Good luck with that. But it's vinceposcente.com.
Okay.
And that's Poscente. So vinceposcente.com. I've got, obviously copies of The Ant and the Elephant if you're interested in that. And then when The Earthquake comes out, grab that because I'm very excited about this journey of the ant and the elephant to help people going through those kind of setbacks.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, Vince. We will be talking with you again soon.
Yes.
You've been one of our speakers at Fellowship Power Lunch, which LisaKay hosts monthly.
Yep.
And we want to be sure to invite you back again on Intentional Talk with LisaKay and Taylor.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much to Vince Poscente for joining us for this episode. Be sure to tune in to Intentional Talk with LisaKay and Taylor, wherever you get your podcast, and on pray.com, and on a new channel on Life Network for Women. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.